So you now have some pyramid that you're trying to make into a pavilion. All of you have had a chance to try this and hopefully have had some success. Now there are ways of designing things that are going to make your life easier in the end, and there are ways that are going to make things more complex. I'm going to show you my approach so you can see how attention to the details along the way may save you time in the end. So right now, no roof that I have seen is all one big solid chunk of metal hanging up above pillars. So we want to use the shell tool to remove some of that face. I don't like that it is so thin, so I'm going to make that shell a little bit thicker, at least a little bit more thickness developing for that roof structure. All right, that's a lot more realistic. The next piece is you are going to take and build some pillars to support this roof structure. So I could build the pillars right off of this surface using a sketch plane from this surface. So I click that, open up that sketch plane, and then I could build the pillars downward. The problem with this, however, is that there's going to be this gap where the pillar never really reaches the roof. Not realistic and not good design. I do recognize that there's construction issues with the way I'm doing this. However, I think the better choice is to have that pillar continue all the way up into this roof structure. So I don't want to make my sketch there. I want to make a new plane instead. So I'm going to choose to make a plane and I'm going to offset it from this face. So the entities that it's asking for is where do you want it offset it from? I'm going to choose that face there. And if we look down here, now I can just drag that face down and I'll have a plane that's sort of acting like the ground here. I'm going to make this, let's say, somewhere 55. Let's see where that puts me. All right, that seems a little big, maybe there. Obviously, these aren't appropriate scales for humans, so we'd have to change how we approach that. But it gives us an idea of how we use these tools. All right, so now I have a sketch plane that I can work from. I'm going to develop a sketch from there. I'm going to choose that plane I just created, hit the N on my keyboard so I can see it from a normal or 90 degrees from where my sketch plane is. All right, next, I really want to develop symmetry within my 4 pillars that are going to support this. And I want it to be nicely centered on my roof structure. We can try and do this visually, but we can do it mathematically, or we can let the program do it for us mathematically with using the geometry we developed by creating this roof structure. I can't if I wanted to build my pillars, I can't necessarily snap to this edge like you would if this particular roof were actually on the plane that I'm drawing on. So we want to take some of the elements that were in our roof structure and sort of trace them onto our sketch plane paper. We can use a tool in our toolbar called Use Project. Basically, that takes some of the edges from our roof structure and traces it onto that paper. So watch here, you can see that develop into place. When I click on those edge lines, they become dark. And now, if I hide my part, I can see that edge that I've just projected onto my paper. From here, I can create that sort of diagonal structure that I had in my roof so that when I place my pillars, I can place them right on that edge. And you can see as I'm dragging my cursor across, it snaps to that edge now where it didn't before when I was just looking at the actual part underneath it. Next thing, all of these lines that I've just drawn here, I don't really want to build any 3D structure out of them. I just want them there so I can construct around them. So we use construction lines for that, and we turn those solid lines to dotted lines. That says, hey, I'm not really intending to use those lines to build anything in particular. I just need to see where those lines are to get the right geometry. From here, I go to build my pillars. So I want to snap it to that horizontal line, or sorry, that diagonal line I've made, and put in a pillar. Now here's where being careful is important. If I hover over that center point of that circle and then drag across, I get that automatic constraint of being horizontal with my other pillar. And I'll notice as I hit that diagonal line, I also highlighted it and it developed, or it turned yellow. So right now that is nicely directly across and directly on this horizontal or diagonal line. So I do that again as I come down to place my next pillar. And I come across to place my final pillar. Extra care in these steps is really important. Then I want all of these pillars to be equal in size, so I'm going to use my equal constraint, set them equal to each other. So we're going to make those equal and those equal. So now they are all the same size. Next, we can still notice that they're blue. We haven't fully constrained them. As a designer, we haven't set all of the places that we want this to be in 3D space. So for example, I can come in here and I can still, if I wanted to, I could grab these and I can make them all bigger and smaller. You can see that that is something that hasn't been determined. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to give this circle a diameter, let's say 10, there we go. Still not totally set in place. We haven't told how far apart we want these pillars to be. So I'm going to come here, grab my dimensioning tool, come across this way. I like to pull my dimensions outside of the actual structure I'm building so that it doesn't get too messy. And there we are. I've turned from black to blue. I'm fully constrained. Those pieces are 100% set in 3D space now. I like my sketch. I've got the solid pieces that I want to be my pillars made out of solid lines, and my construction pieces out of dotted lines. All right. So now let's turn my roof back on and see what's happening here. And let's get this isometrically. All right. Now I need to build these parts. So I'm going to choose the extrude tool and select the 4 different places for pillars. It's going in the wrong direction. Let's change that direction and I can build those up. I can continue to build and build and build. Now, right now, you can see in the extrude window here, where I'm moving my cursor, that I have suggested I want it to go blindly in this direction for a depth of 28.4 inches. You can select a smarter choice here where you can say, I want to go up until I hit the next part. And now you can see that pillar hitting right on the inside area of the roof. So that pillar has extended right up to, and if you wanted this all to be one part together, say you wanted to 3D print it, you could merge it with this original roof structure so that all of that is one part.